Good evening, Subroto sir. স্যার আপনার একটা মিউট আসছে, কথা শোনা যাচ্ছে না কিন্তু। না, শোনা যাচ্ছে না। চন্দন স্যার, গুড ইভিনিং।
হ্যাঁ, হ্যালো, গুড ইভিনিং।
গুড ইভিনিং চন্দন স্যার আর সুব্রত।
হ্যালো।
সুব্রত দা, আপনারটা একটু আনমিউট করতে হবে। কৌস্তব, আগের দিনের ডাউট ক্লিয়ারিং যেটা ছিল সেটা কি আমরা মানে কিভাবে এটা করব? ওটা এখন রাখবো না কি করা হবে
না,
প্ল্যানটা?
আগের দিনের কিছু ছিল না। ওই জীবকদা বেটার জানেন। জীবকদা
কোনো ডাউট ছিল না।
ওকে ওকে, তাহলে কোনো অসুবিধা নেই।
কোনো ডাউট ছিল না, আমি নীল স্যারকে বলে দিয়েছি যে প্রয়োজন নেই।
হুম, ঠিক আছে, ওকে।
স্যার, আমার মনে হয় আপনি লগ অফ করে আবার লগ ইন করুন। সুব্রত স্যার, লগ অফ করে লগ ইন করুন, আবার জয়েন করুন।
আচ্ছা কৌস্তব, এটা প্রেজেন্টেশনটা যেটা পাঠানো আছে ইয়েতে, সেটা ডাউনলোড করা আছে তো জীবকের কাছে? যদি কোনো প্রবলেম হয় তাহলে মানে যাতে করা যায়।
হ্যাঁ, করা আছে।
ওকে ওকে, ঠিক। কৌস্তব, আই থিঙ্ক আমাদের তাহলে কি এবার উই শুড স্টার্ট নাকি? চন্দন স্যার, শুরু করবো?
হ্যাঁ, নিশ্চয়ই। আমার মনে হয় অনেকক্ষণ
আমারও
আমরা
মনে হয়, হ্যাঁ,
মানে আমরা ডেকোরামটাই ব্রেক করে ফেলছি আর কি।
এক্স্যাক্টলি, হ্যাঁ। না, পিপল আর কন্টিনিউয়াসলি জয়নিং, অসুবিধা কিছু নেই। লেট আস স্টার্ট।
let them join. Let us
ঠিক
start.
আছে, ঠিক আছে, ওকে।
Okay, so
So
good
hello
afternoon.
and
I think
হ্যাঁ,
yes,
আমি
Aditya,
স্যার
please
আপনার
start.
বলে নিচ্ছি একবার। হ্যাঁ,
Yes,
hello
yes.
and welcome. This is the next class in the statistics module. Very important class, the details of which you will shortly know. So let me at the beginning welcome our two esteemed chairpersons to take us through this evening. Professor Chandan Dasgupta, Professor, Department of Radiation Oncology, Arjikar Medical College, and Professor Subroto Chatterjee, Professor, Department of Radiation Oncology, Medical College, Kolkata. So may I please request the chairpersons to take the lead and introduce the speaker and carry forward today's proceedings.
Good afternoon, everyone. Subroto, are you there? Subroto, তুমি আছো? শুনতে পাচ্ছো? So let us start today's evening academic program. This is the 6-week program of our statistics academic program. Our today's topic is survival analysis and understanding and elucidation of Kaplan-Meier survival curve. The speaker is Dr. Kaustav Mojumdar, and I invite Dr. Kaustav to initiate the program. Dr. Kaustav, you please start your lecture.
Thank you, sir, and good evening, everyone. I'm going to share my screen.
Just as Kaustav is sharing his screen, let me again inform all of you, please, accepting the chairpersons and the speaker, please keep yourselves muted, your video feeds off. Kindly do not accidentally share your screen, and any queries that you have, kindly keep typing it in the chat box. Thank you so much.
Is my screen is visible?
Yes, Kaustav, you are very much visible.
Okay. Thank you and good evening, everyone. So today's topic is on the survival analysis and understanding of the Kaplan-Meier survival curve. So for the last near about 5 classes, what we have learned till now. So for starting from the first class, we have it is on data, and after that we have known everything about some randomized control trial, how to design it, how to design the various studies. Then we have a proper discussion on the p-values, the null hypothesis, and everything. And there is the test of significance, which test should be used in which cases. So, and these all things are important to ultimately know and understand this survival analysis. Starting from for the discussion of this survival analysis, I will start with a example. So each and every statistical method should, if it is depicted in example, that it will be more understandable for you. Suppose we have a case of CA breast post lumpectomy. They have been randomized in radiotherapy and no radiotherapy arm. So what might be the outcome after it? So some people died, some people alive in the both radiotherapy and non-radiotherapy arm. So ultimately it might be a outcome 1. What the other types of outcome might present? There might be some recurrence, that is in the breast there might some recurrence occur or no recurrence. And similarly, in when no radiotherapy is given, there might be some recurrence or no recurrence occur. So this is the outcome 2 might occur. Such various type of outcome might occur when we are giving a treatment to patients. Okay. And there is some another type of outcome. You cannot say outcome, but is a part of the your ultimately the study, that is some people ultimately lost to follow up or ultimately take break from the study and not included in the study. They should also taken into account in the analysis. So this outcome 1, outcome 2, or any other outcome, this is depicted as event in the survival analysis in the biostatistics. So what are the types of event? It might be death, it might be recurrence, it might be progression, some metastasis might occur. So these are all the events, and ultimately those who survive at the end of the study, they are ultimately the survivor. Here we see the 2 things. One is the event, another is the time of that event. Okay, so event means death, recurrence, progression. So and the time required for the death or the time from the randomization to the recurrence. So this is the time. So this data is called the time to event data. So the time from the entry into the study until the subject has a particular outcome or event. So this is time to event. So there are various examples of this time to events. For example, recurrence-free survival, overall survival. We all know somehow this term. These definitions are given by the FDA regarding the overall survival or the survival definition. So overall survival is defined by from the time of the randomization until the death from any cause. And it is normally measured in the intention to treat populations. Progression-free survival is the time from randomization until the objective tumor progression or death might occur, whichever occurred the first. It is the progression-free survival. Disease-free survival is the time from the randomization until the disease recurrence or death from any cause. Normally, progression-free survival or disease-free survival either is used in any kind of study. Normally, disease-free survival is used in case of the adjuvant setting. As I have given the example, in the post-lumpectomy, radiotherapy or non-radiotherapy, in those cases, disease-free survival is one of the important method for the to address the outcome. Another is that event-free survival. So event-free survival is the endpoint is similar to the disease-free survival, but it differentiated from that randomization takes place before the definitive treatment. I am giving the simple example. Suppose a CA breast patient is taking neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and after that the surgery radiotherapy occur. So if we start randomization before giving this neoadjuvant chemotherapy, and after that any kind of event occurred, in those cases the event-free survival normally taken into the study as a method of the depiction. So it progression of the disease that precludes the surgery, local or distant recurrence, or death due to any cause. Everything has been taken into account. So it is normally when a neoadjuvant therapy is given for the downstage of the disease, in those cases this event-free survival is normally used. Along with all this survival, there are various other type of survival definition is used in the studies. For example, metastatic free survival, local recurrence free survival. So from the nomenclature itself, you can you have an idea that what does it mean. And most importantly is that in any case of study, in the material methods, when you are going to read it, you will see the author has given the definition of it. So they have been given the definition whether it started from the time from the randomization or whatever else. Okay. So now the thing is come that why this time to event data is unique. So in the first class, it has the data, what are the types of data, and when it is used has been already discussed. So we knew it is a categorical or numerical data. Either categorical is divided in nominal or ordinal, or numerical is interval or ratio scale. But this data is unique because in each and every case you can see either in the data you will see that, for example, weight in kg is used as a continuous variable, something like that. But here the two things is taken in account. One is the event and another is the time. So you can say more than one dimension of the data is here. So it is a multi-dimensional, two-dimensional, you can say it. So this is unique for other, and it is so it is different from the other type of data, as the time is taken into the consideration in this case. Now, when when we are going to analyze all this time to event and everything, we have to formulate a methodology. Each and every statistics you have to formulate a methodology. So in this case, what are the various part by which the methodology has been formulated? First is the target event. So what is the target event? I have already mentioned the death might a target event, the recurrence might, a progression might occur. So you have to define that. Second, the time of origin. So from when you have to calculate the survival or the time. For example, maximum case from the date of randomization, the time origin have been started. Third is the time scale. This survival, whether you want to depict in the years or in months or something like that, this is the time scale. Sometimes age is also taken in as the time scale, but not in the all type of these studies. And the most important here is the how participant will exit the study. I am coming to it. So I have already told in my first slide that there is various outcome, and among them there is one called loss to follow-up or something like that. Okay, so we have in this data no complete data is available. Suppose there are 12 patients, and ultimately at the end of the study you can see that the 3 patients lost to follow-up. So if we totally subtract the 3 patients from the 12 patients, ultimately what happens? Okay, happens that the loss of power might occur. So if when there is a loss of power, there is the strength of the study ultimately decrease. So that is not our motto. Okay, so sample size is important to determine the power of a study. So loss of power might not occur. Okay, so we cannot totally exclude the study. So what we have done, we have tactfully include the this thing, the censoring, into the survival analysis. So what is censoring? It is just to nullify the effect of the missing data. So what might occur? Patient lost to follow-up is there, patient drop out from the study, or if the patient ends before any events. So in those cases, censoring is done. So what are the types of censoring? Censoring types might be the right censoring, left censoring, or interval censoring. Mainly in this time to event analysis or the survival analysis, the right censoring is taken. So what is right censoring? Right censoring, you can see the word right. So this is the time. Okay, this is the time from which the randomization start, and ultimately the patient is getting treatment and following up. Okay, and after a period of time, suddenly the patient stopped coming. So by this depiction, the censoring has been the censoring is told. So this is from left to right side, it has been occurred, and so this is called the right censoring. Okay, so among this right censoring, the two things are important. One is the administrative censoring and non-informative censoring. Non-informative censoring is nothing, which I have already told, if the patient drop out from the study or take back the consent from the study. So this is the non-informative, rather if the loss to follow-up is there, then it is non-informative censoring. Okay, and the administrative censoring is that which occur owing to a fixed duration of the follow-up for each patient or owing to a fixed time of study. I am giving you the simple example that each and every study is, we cannot continue each and every study for the lifelong. Suppose we have started a study, we are going to complete it after the 3 years. Okay, so after 3 years, when we are going to complete the study, there are few people left who are alive. Okay, so in those cases, those who are alive, we don't know what happens in those people in the latter part of his life. Okay, so these people are censored as our study has stopped there. So this is called the administrative censorship. So as an administrator or administration of the study, we stop the patient to give follow-up and to rather to include the follow-up into the study. So this is called the administrative censoring. Okay, so from till now, what we have learned, one is the event, what are the types of event is there, and what are the censoring is there. Now I am requesting Dr. Jivak Bhattacharya to demonstrate in their Excel presentation the various survival and this thing, how to calculate it. Jivak, please.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so give me a moment, I'm presenting it. So can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, fine. So I'll work on this, the Excel sheet provided by Dr. Costa. So as we have promised previously while in our first edge cases class, that for survival analysis, you need to enter the data in a separate way. As you know, because Dr. Costa has already mentioned that this kind of data in survival analysis, we don't look into one category, but we one dimension, but we look into different dimension, which includes time. So there is one event and one time which you need to consider while analyzing for a survival. So for that, we need to enter the data in a different way than what we have seen earlier. For the sake of the analysis, you need to put the computer know that what happened to this patient, so that at a time what happened to a patient, to know to analyze the survival. So for that, as Kostav has mentioned here, that we know how to put the arms in as per the category, like they are the categorical data, like some patient receive radiotherapy. The example Professor has given first for the breast patient receiving radiotherapy or no radiotherapy. So you can see the 6 patients received radiotherapy and 13 patients, and the 6 patient did not receive radiotherapy. There is some ages are given, performance status is given, and he has mentioned the date of randomization. That means from when the study started. I mean, from when the patient entered the study. Okay, that is very important. I will come to that. And now he has left the places for date of last follow-up, and this is lost to follow-up, whether the patient is lost to follow-up not. Many times you can see in in many articles they mention how much patient left at the time of study analysis, final analysis. That means how much how many of those patients actually lost to follow-up, which is a very good thing to document, I guess, because this can actually affect the final result. Now, secondly, we have he has mentioned that observation in last follow-up. That means what was the status in last follow-up. So whatever may be the follow-up time, that is the date of the last follow-up, and this is the observation at last follow-up. That means whether the patient is alive or patient is dead. I mean, you cannot know whether in a follow-up you cannot know that the patient has died. But yes, if the patient comes and gets admitted and eventually dies in the hospital, you know the patient has died. And secondly, for if you come to know by at some time that the patient has died, you can also mention that. So basically, he has mentioned death, yes or no. So that is one event. Then he has mentioned date of death. That means when the patient died. So again, another date. So we have one date over here, one date over here, and he has written overall survival in month. That means how many months or days the patient lived from the time of randomization. So I'll come to that how to calculate. And then he has mentioned recurrence. That means again it is one event at the time of follow-up. Basically, in the time of follow-up, you can mention whether at the time of follow-up what is the status of the patient, whether the patient is alive, whether the patient is having a recurrence, whether the patient is died or not. So these are the different types of property the patient may have during the time of follow-up. And again, the date of recurrence and recurrence-free month, similar to the date. This is again a date of recurrence and recurrence-free month, which we need to calculate. Now, if you think about survival analysis, as Dr. Kaustav has already mentioned, that this date, recurrence, everything, or if you consider this as a progression, everything is counted as an event. Okay, that means this is an event. If the patient dies, this is an event, and we'll calculate it as a survival analysis for overall survival. Now, if it is a recurrence, we can the similar result will be for recurrence-free survival or disease-free survival or progression-free survival. So that means what you will report is according to what the event is, but the basic and basic analysis way is similar. So you define the event, whether it is a death, whether it is a recurrence, whether it is anything. You can have whatever your outcome is, you define the event as that, but and make it the tabulation as that separately, so that you can identify. But you have to have two data. One is the what was the follow-up date when you are basically documenting the event, what was the date, and what is the event. Now, coming to that, for survival analysis, you have to have some your criteria or your data sheet must have some assumptions. I will be writing here for your convenience. First, it there's the event status. So I have mentioned it is an event. So you have to define what is the event, whether the event can be a date or the event can be recurrence. I hope it's visible.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So you have to define the event first. Next is that the event has to be mutually exclusive. That means the event has to be either one. I mean, either the patient dies or the patient is living, patient is alive or the patient is dead. You cannot have anything else. So the events have to be mutually exclusive. So if you consider death as the event, so you have to report it either the patient is alive or the patient is dead. There is nothing in between. Okay. And for each category, you have to mention it. There should be no missing data. So what will be the, and nextly, what is the time? So as we have mentioned the time over here, that he has mentioned, the Kosovo has mentioned the dates you have to write. The time, it's very important to mention the time, not in approximation, but the exact time. That means you cannot say the patient died between this year to that year, or the patient died between this month to that month. You have to mention a date, or at least clearly the month from the start of randomization. So it's better to use the exact date because it will be easier to calculate. Otherwise, you have to calculate the months for months manually. That is very difficult. So the time has to be calculated, time of event has to be very clearly and precisely defined. And precisely defined. Otherwise, you cannot calculate, because after all, it's a mathematics. So you cannot have anything approximated. You have to make it a clear date and time interval. So it will be in a, so this will be a nominal data, right? Especially this will be binomial because it will be have either one. So either alive or dead. Okay, any two of the outcome, and this will be a scale data because this will be time in months, days, or years. So this will be a continuous variable. So according to SPSS, it will be a scale or continuous data. What next? As Dr. Kosav has mentioned, so it's better to avoid left censoring as much as possible, because left censoring means when the data, that is the date of randomization. Okay, so it should be a fixed one. That means that if you consider the date of randomization to be starting for the calculation, it has to be maintained. Otherwise, there will be problem and bias in your result. And there are few more assumptions. I will come to that later. They are not very important at present for your purpose, but still there is some assumptions that the censoring of events should be more or less equal in censoring should be more or less equally distributed in the arms you are comparing. And secondly, there should be no secular traits. That means, suppose you were doing a study over a year of, suppose you were doing a study over 5 to 10 years, and for a, suppose for a cancer drug, and you want to see the survival effect comparison of the cancer drug with a standard therapy. And in the meantime, some other standard treatment emerges and the patient gets started on that therapy. So there is a change over this period. So at a 10 years time, the standard treatment has been changed. So you can actually see this phenomena actually may affect your result. So I will come to that later when Dr. Kaustav will be talking about the comparison. But these are the assumptions you have to take before going for a survival analysis, especially before documenting the data. Now let's see how we can document it and how we can calculate it easily in Excel. Okay, so let me start over here. I'm going to show some Excel formula to calculate the month size. So suppose this is the patient ID. Now we have suppose it is the date of randomization or date of entering the study, and suppose we have the date of, I'm considering the event as date. Okay, so date, or suppose I'm going to date of the follow-up. I'll start with the follow-up, because when you are will be entering the data, we will start as date of follow-up. Okay, now here we'll be considering the time. Okay. So now simply you need to enter the dates over here. Now, if you enter the dates manually, the Excel may not understand it is a date. Okay. So what you have to do is you need to make the computer understand that you are entering a date. For that, you need to click on the chart, right click on it, go to format cells, and in the category list, you select it as date. Okay. So that will give you the format you want to use. I'll be using the default format. So again, I'm showing that for this one also similar. Right click on the block or cell, go to format cells, go to category, and consider it as date. Okay. So suppose now I'll be entering it. What he has used is enter 12/3/2018. So I'll be using 12/3/2018. See, the computer has taken it as 12/3/2018. So let me do it over like the same. 14/4/2018 again. 14/4/2018. Now coming to date of follow-up or date of death or whatever, date of event. I should mention date of event. That is the best. Okay. So give me 1 second. Someone wants to admit. Okay. So similarly, suppose it is today 21st 11/2020. Okay. So 21/11/2020 and let me as in it. Okay, so we have the dates now. Now what I need to calculate is it is the interval between this date and this date, because I need to know how many months patient has died or how many months patient had before recurrence. Okay, because I have to calculate I have to convert it into the numerical scale. I need to convert it into scale data, numerical data. So I need to have it in terms of either years, in terms of months, or in terms of dates. The month is the most commonly used category for this purpose. Now let me in someone's. I request all of you to join on time, please. So let's see what. So here I'll be putting one formula. It's not used much. So go to the formula bar. If we write the formula, write date, enter, then come to date, then write D or DIF, then plus bracket, sorry, and close it. So now we have your formula ready. Now what you have to give, you have to put 3 things here. You need to identify what was the first day of calculation. So this is the first date of calculation, 1 comma. It is the date of event, again comma. Now you have to use some abbreviation to let the computer calculate what should be the outcome in month, day, or year. So let me put D for day. So 985 days. Is it clear? If you need to see it again, please write in the chat box And Kaustav, if you can see the chat box, please let me know if someone wants me to repeat it more than once. I will repeat once more, but if someone wants to see it again, I'll show it again. Okay. So for here also, you can just click it. So 476 days, 985 days. So now if I want it in months, okay, let me copy it, paste it. Giving it, no, it's not giving it. Fine. Here, month, 32 months. Here also, which can be months, 15 months. Okay. Lastly, if you put it in Y for years, 2 years, 5, 1. Okay. I guess I'm clear. So what are the
Yeah.
abbreviations? Simple. D for date, M for month, Y for year. Okay. So what is the formula? The formula is date. Remember, you need to put an equal to date, these, first bracket, enter the cell name, click the cell rather, B2, C2, again comma, then put apostrophes and write D, M or Y, whatever you want as an outcome. This. So that will, Excel will calculate your time frame that will be copying in the SPSS. Okay, hope I'm clear.
Can we proceed, Jivagda? Can I?
I
Is
think
there
so.
anything to show now?
No, after you show the Kaplan-Meier curve, I'll show the SPSS.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. So we have already discussed this thing event and the censoring. What are the types of event? What are the types of censoring and when it is used? Now I'm going to show how this Kaplan-Meier survival curve has been ultimately drawn by the computer or by manually, whatever. So for drawing this thing, we have to know how the patients behaves during the treatment, whether she or he have a recurrence or she or he have a any death or any event, or he or she have any censored data is there or not. So in here we have given in the x-axis the months, okay, and y-axis, in not y-axis we have given the various, not in the y-axis, here I have depicted the various patients. Okay, there's a first patient, second patient, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. So some patient is followed up after the taking treatment. There is an event in the patient after the 5 months. Okay, second patient, after the randomization, patient has followed the total time, and ultimately when the study ends, the patient survive. Okay, so this line is depict the administrative censoring. Okay, so second patient is like that. In the third patient, when it is taking the treatment, followed them, and after the 8 months, the patient lost to follow, so censored at the 8 months. Another patient started from the randomization, so at the near about 9 months, there is an event. Another patient, fifth patient, followed throughout the study, and there is administrative censoring. Okay, after this 12 months, this is the study stop here. And the sixth patient, at the end of the 11 months, he have a this thing, censoring is there. So this is the total thing occur in the study group, in the radiotherapy group. But this depiction is somehow misnomer. Why? Because all the patient is not entered the study at a same point of time. Some people have entered the study at the March 2018. Okay, so here some people after April 2018, some are June 2018, like this way. So this is should be the depiction of this patient. Coming to this, so we have the patient data, when the patient randomized, when the patient had event or censored. So already Dr. Jeebak Patel has mentioned that the month we know whether he's censored, whether he has dead or alive, whether she has recurrence or not, something like that. Now, 3 different type of research questions is there for the time to event data. So these 3 different types, what are the 3 is there? What proportion of the individual will remain free of event after the certain time? So suppose if you see the after in December 20, after the 9 months, what proportion of the patient remain alive? We want to know it. Second, what proportion of the individual will have an event after the certain time? That is, for example, after 6 months, how many people have an event? Okay, we have to know it. Third is that what is the risk of the event at a particular point of time among those who have survived until the point? So this is only the 6 patient. So some study have to be done among the 600 patient, or what are in the population after, suppose in 9 months, what might be the fraction of the people will survive, or what might be the fraction of the people having an event? We should also know that. So these are the research questions we have to answer by the survival curve. So as I already mentioned that this is the time to event analysis. The survival, this nomenclature is a quite misnomer, because not only death we are taking into account, but also the other types of thing, that is the recurrence, progression, is also taken into account. So this Kaplan-Meier survival curve is named after Edward Kaplan and Paul Meier. The both in the same time they have invented this analysis. So after their name, this survival curve have been named. So here the one important thing is the Kaplan-Meier estimator. Okay, so it is used to measure the fraction of the patient living for a certain amount of time after the treatment. Suppose there are the 5 patients at risk of any event, and after suppose 1 year, 1 patient having the event. So what are the fraction of patient? It is a 4 out of 5, something like that. So this is a Kaplan-Meier estimator. It should be ultimately depending on the upon the statistical method to be used. And the Kaplan-Meier estimator is a non-parametric statistics, because maximum cases in the survival or any kind of study there is censoring, and due to censoring there is right skewing of data. In the statistics class, you already know what is non-parametric, what is parametric statistics. Parametric statistics is that when the data are distributed in a normal distribution. Okay, so if there is a normal distribution, then we used in the parametric statistics, and when there is skewed data, then we have to use the non-parametric statistics. In this case, as there the maximum the censoring present, so there the data are right skewed, and so the right non-parametric statistics as used. So here the Kaplan-Meier survival estimate is a non-parametric statistics, and it used to survival fraction in the lifetime data. Now, to know how the Kaplan-Meier survival curve determined the shape of this curve, we have to know what is conditional probability. So conditional probability is defined as the likelihood of an event or outcome occurring based on the occurrence of the previous event or outcome. Okay, suppose we followed up a study in 3 years. So after the first year, there might be some probability of surviving. Okay, we can determine it, and after the 2 years, that is from first after the completion of the first year and up to the completion of the second year, there is a probability of surviving. Okay, so when we are calculating the cumulative survival, then the formula is like that: the probability of survival in the first year multiplication with the probability of the first survival of the second year. That means that the total probability after the second year is dependent on the probability of the first year also. In a very crude way, if we can, I can give you an example of conditional probability. Is that suppose the breast cancer survival is total of a patient of a population might be an average survival is suppose 3 years, and if the breast cancer having a BRCA mutated, there might be survival is 2 years. So BRCA mutation is taken into account as a condition to change the probability. So this is the conditional probability, and in the survival curve, when we are determining it, we are determining by the reciprocation of the previous year or the previous time interval. So I have already told that calculated by multiplying the probability of the preceding event by the updated probability of the succeeding event. Okay. Now coming to the survival curve proper. Here, if you can see in this graph, rather, the x-axis is the time and the y-axis in the probability of the survival. So it is 1. 1 means that the all people have is survived. That is, in 0 months when we are started recruiting, we all know that all the people who are going to recruit they are alive at the point of time. So this is 1. Okay, and you can see the surviving is ultimately decreased. That is 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, like this way to the 0. Now I have already shown you this example here. So after the 5 months, you can see there is an event. So 0 to 5 months, there is no event. So ultimately, when the survival curve is given given its shape, it is that in this up to the 5 months, it has no change is there. So it is remain 1, and at 6 months there is a drop. Okay, so how this drop is calculated? This drop is calculated by the probability of surviving. So in this interval 0 to 6 months, the probability of surviving is 5 out of 6. Why 5 out of 6? So you have seen there is 6 people, 6 persons are there. Okay, so 6 people are at risk, and there is 1 event. So 6 minus 1, that is 5. So 5 people having no event after the end of the 6 months. Okay, so probability is 5 out of 6 is 0.83. So you can see the 0.83 that is dropped up to the 0.83. Now what happened next? This thing in the 8 months there is an censoring, and near about 9 months there is an event. So what happens? 6 to 9 months, in between the 6 to 9 months there is one censoring is there. Okay, this is the depiction, and at the end of the 9th month there is also a drop. So here how will you calculate? So first you have to calculate between the 6 to 9 months of the probability, not this one, 6 to 9th month of the probability. So 6 to 9 month probability is, how is it calculated? 3 out of 4. How is it come? I am giving you the thing. So ultimately, end of this 6 months, that the 5 pupils have event free. Okay, and 1 pupil gets censored now in between. So 5 minus 1 is 4. So 4 people at risk now. Okay, and how the 3 is come? 3 is that the 3 people are event free. So 5 minus 1, that is 1 censored, and is equal to 4, and minus 1, that is 1 people having an event. So 5 minus 2, 1 censored and 1 event. So 5 minus 2 is 3. So 6 to 9 month probability is 0.75. Okay, so ultimately the end of the 9th month, what is the conditional probability? It is the 0.62. Now is it clear? It is 0.83 multiplied by 0.45 is a 0.6. So there is a drop up to the 0.62. Okay, this is the conditional probability. So this up in the 9th month, the probability is depending obviously on the 0 to 6 months of the probability. Okay, so like this way, the another thing happened around the 11 months. there is an censoring of the data occurred. So in the censoring, the probability will be 2 out of 2, because after the end of the 9th month, 3 people are at risk, 1 people gets censored is 2, and after the end of the 3 months, the 2 people are at risk. So 3 minus 2 is there. So both numerator and denominator both are 2 is 1. So 9 to 12 months conditional probability is 0.62. Okay. Now, if it happens that without this censoring, there is an event, then what happened? So suppose now you can see there is an previously it was censored, but now this patient have an event. So what happened? The 9 to 12 month probability became 1 out of 2. How? Because there is one event, so 2 minus 1 is there, okay, and 2 people are risk, okay, so it is 0.5. So up to end of the 9 to 12 months, the conditional probability is 0.5 into 0.62. What we have got previously, 0.62 is 0.4. So there is drop in the thing. So previously there is no drop, and now you can see there is drop. If there is without censoring event occurred, then there is drop of this curve. Okay, and from this curve, what we can determine that the median survival. So in this surviving probability, what does it mean? After the 12 months here, total 0.4 is the survival fraction. That is the 40% of the total study population remains event free, isn't it? So 40% of the total population remain event free after the 12 months. So if we determine the median survival, what means that when it is the 50% of the population event free, it is called the median survival. So here the median survival is, you can see that 12 months is the median survival. Okay, so in this way the median survival has been shown and calculated also. Now this graph is for the one study group, that is the radiotherapy group. Okay, so in the no radiotherapy group, there might be some another survival curve will be there. So ultimately, according to the number of the study arm, we either have 2 or 3 or more, something like that, according to the number of the study arm. So if we now you can tell us that this is a tortuous thing we have already seen in various survival curves. So how this tortuous thing come? If you can magnify all these things, because I am giving you the example with 6 people, but if it is done in the 600 people, it is, you cannot see the steps here. But if you can magnify it, you can easily see the steps here. And these two ultimately the steps are very close to each other and make it a tortuous graph. So you can see that there is 2 graph and it is ultimately a tortuous graph, but there is obviously steps are there. Okay, so these are the by this way the survival curve has been depicted. You can see here the months is there and progression survival. Sometimes it is depicted in percentage, and sometimes it is the survival fraction, that is 1.9 and 100 or 90 if it is in percentage. Now coming that, you have already seen that 2 curve, might be some 3 curve is there. So how we are going to compare these 2 curves? So in these 2 curve, how to compare? Here the rank based test is used to statistically test the difference between the survival curves. Okay, so why this unique test has been done? Because in a class you have already know that there are various types of tests: student t-test, ANOVA test, a Mac-Whitney's test, something like that. But why those tests are not is taken into consideration for the comparison? Because it ignores the time there and also ignores the time in those cases. So it is a special type of thing which has been depicted here, and this is the log rank test has been used for comparison of it. So ultimately, by the long rank test, you can get a p-value. Okay, but this is important that we should not solely dependent on the p-value. If the p-value is 0.04, okay, it is significant, fine. But if it is a p-value is 0.02, you cannot differentiate between the 0.02 and 0.04 because both are significant, but it is not that according to the difference the significance is more. It is not like that. And in the survival curve, you cannot solely depend on the p-value because p-value cannot use to estimate the effect size. What is effect size? Effect size is simply the way of quantifying the difference between the two groups. You cannot quantify between the two groups. So p-value cannot quantify it. And also this log-rank test cannot, it ignores the censoring. When there is a censored data, we cannot rely on this p-value only. And already I have mentioned that this Kaplan-Meier estimator is a non-parametric models. So non-parametric models in limited in that way that it cannot assess the effect of the multiple factors. Suppose in this group, in radiotherapy or non-radiotherapy group, the survival not only depend upon the radiotherapy itself, it also depending upon the for example in the breast, it depends upon the hormonal status, is depend upon the age of the patient, something like that. But this p-value doesn't taken into account in those cases. So multiple factor we cannot compare in the by only seeing the p-value. So we need something. So what we need? We need a regression analysis. So for the sake of your understanding, I am giving you some just overview idea of this correlation and regression because it has not been covered till now in the statistics classes. What is correlation? Correlation is that when we predict a linear relationship between the two variables, okay, and it is ranges from the -1 to +1. I am giving you the example. Suppose in a child, the weight increase when the height is increased. So there is a positive correlation between them. So here the correlation is +1. Okay. Suppose in some cases it's occurred that if something has been increased but the independent variable has been decreased, ultimately it is called the negative correlation, that is the -1. So correlation is started from the -1 to +1 including 0. If it is 0, there will be no correlation. But the correlation does not tell us about the cause and effect relationship. So what do we want? We want the regression. So regression analysis is used to find how one set of data relates to another. Okay. Correlation measures the strength of association, whether the association strength present or not, but regression quantifies it. So we need the quantification. How strong it is. We have to do it. So there are the various types of regression. Just an overview. First is a linear regression. You can see the linear regression. It is a formula is a straight line formula, that is y is equal to a plus bx, that is the y is the dependent variable, x is the independent variable. Okay, a and b are constant. So if you know the a and b the constant values and x value, we can easily determine the y. Suppose in the height and weight example, if we know some constant value and we know the weight of the patient, height of the patient, then we can easily determine the weight, that is y. So this is called the linear regression. Okay, but maximum case it might not present. So for example, in a oncological outcome or the survival depends on the TNM. You all know tumor, node, and metastasis status. Okay, so the survival depends on the tumor also, but here the node and metastasis is as a confounding factor affect the survival. So to determine it, the multiple regression is used. And another type of example is the logistic regression. What is it? It is a statistical method of analyzing the variable to predict an outcome whether falls into a category or not. Mainly predict the dichotomous outcome. So whether suppose in a CA breast case, after giving a treatment, whether a patient will die or will remain alive. If a statistical question is there, then we can determine it by a logistic regression by yes or no. Okay, so in this survival analysis, you will all know that there is either the patient will dead or alive, or either having recurrence or not, something like that. So should it be in the logistic regression? No. Should it be in the multiple regression? No. Why? These all regression not taking time in considerations. So we need a totally different type of regression, which is called the Cox regression, which is another is the hazard proportional model. So I am first giving you the definition, then coming to the example. So it is the time to event regression model which describes the relationship between the event incidence as expressed by the hazard function and set of covariates. I think it is not clear to you. Coming to it, what is hazard function? Hazard function is nothing but the failure rate. Very crude way, but very simple way. It is a failure rate. And what is set of covariates? I am already telling you that the event not only depend on a single factor, but there are multiple factors by which the time to event is depending. Okay, so this regression is taken into account the hazard function, that is the failure rate, and the various covariates into questions. Suppose in the 10 months, or you can say in the 15 months, here the hazard function is like that. The patient having some failure, the patient or the population having some failure after giving the treatment, so it is taken this action, and also the age of the person, or rather the race of the person, or the hormonal status of the person is taken into account. So these do ultimately incorporate into the Cox regression model, and analysis done by this by a complex calculated method. Okay, so this used to investigate the relationship between the event and the possible explanatory variables, that covariates. And important thing is that this regression is also taken the time in consideration, and it requires the observation of the time. So from the Cox regression model, what we will get? It is the hazard ratio. What is the hazard ratio? Hazard means the failure. Okay, so what is hazard ratio? In a point of time, hazard of event, not that it is wrongly written, hazard of an event in a study arm to that of the control arm. That is the hazard of an event in one group and hazard of an event in the another group. Okay, that means that suppose in a 15 month of time, what is the hazard of in the control? This is C means the control group, and T means the test group. So in the 15 months, what might be the hazard? So if the hazard is less in the treatment group and more in the control group at a point of time, then the ratio is less than 1. Simple thing. It is less than 1 because the hazard is less. And if it is less than 1, we can easily conclude that the treatment group is doing better. Hazard means hazard. So treatment group is doing better than that of the control group. Okay. So if the hazard ratio 0.78, that means that the hazard of death or event is more in the control group by 22%. How? 0.78 means the 1 minus 0.78, that is 0.22. Okay, so 22% benefit of adding this treatment with respect to the control group. Fine. Okay, so this is the hazard ratio is 0.78. In Cox regression, there is another term I have depicted, the proportional hazard model. Why it is called the proportional hazard model? Because it is assumed that first thing, the hazard functions are ultimately parallel. That is that in the two survival curve, the hazard function should be the parallel and do not cross over. This is the assumption. What it done that it calculated the hazard ratios in the different point of time. Suppose it calculates the hazard ratio at 5 months, 10 months, 11 months, 15 months, like that. And ultimately, when the final hazard ratio it has calculated, they average it out. So in every point of time, it's taken in consideration, and ultimately the hazard ratio of the average hazard ratio will get final this 0.78. Okay. Now, should this 0.78 is sufficient for us? No, because if this 0.78 is not, it is a single value, but we have to know from what might be the confidence interval, that is within which range this 0.78 will remain. Okay, so it is determined by the confidence interval. So in the first class, you all know what is the standard error of mean, standard error. Okay, so standard error, so confidence interval is the hazard ratio plus minus standard error, and standard error is calculated by hazard ratio divided by root over of the sample size. So it is dependent on the sample size. So you can say that the why we need this thing, this standard error, because suppose we are doing, not suppose, we are doing this study with a certain number of the population. For example, 500 population, 600 population, like that. But if we want to reciprocate this, the population, this study number to the whole population, then we need this standard error. And for that only, we calculate the standard error and we calculate the confidence interval. Okay, that is, this we assume that our study population ultimately denotes the whole population of the breast cancer. Okay, so to reciprocate it, to show it properly, ultimately we have to do this 95% of the confidence interval. Okay, so this hazard ratio is the plus minus standard error. Okay, now how you going to conclude from this 95% confidence interval? I am showing you. In each and every survival analysis, there might be a forest plot. So forest plot you will be you'll be taught in the next one class. Okay, so I am just giving you the this forest plot after this survival analysis. You can see the 1 here. 1 is the hazard ratio is the 1. Okay, 0 means the hazard ratio is decreasing here. And as we all know that if the hazard ratio is decreasing, the study group in question, that is the treatment group in question, if it is less than 1, then it is beneficial for the patient. For example, here we are depicting a pertuzumab is giving or the placebo is giving. So you can see in the maximum cases, you can see that the hazard ratio, this hazard ratio is less than 1. But which is significant, which should be taken in consideration? The only things is taken into consideration when the confidence interval is also present in less than 1 status. You can see that confidence interval from here to here. This is the confidence interval. Okay, here to here, this is the confidence interval. So in few cases, you can see that the confidence interval cross the 1 line. Some cases, maximum cases, you can see the confidence interval is all do not cross this vertical line. Okay, suppose in these cases, when the immunohistochemistry is 3+ in the HER2/neu status, you can see that the confidence interval is a 0.55 to 0.79. So what is the 0.55? It means that 1 minus 0.58, that is the 45% survival chance, to the 21%, that is the 1 minus 0.79, that is the 79, 100 minus 79, that is the 21%. So in the population, the benefit varied from the 45% to 21%. Okay, but all in the whole population, there is benefit of adding pertuzumab, because ultimately the hazard ratio is less than 1. But in this case, you can see that hazard ratio is 1.1. In that means that in population, some cases the study population study in that study group or the drug is not that effective. That is, the study group the drug is hazardous than that of the control arm. So in those cases we cannot take in consideration. In those people we try to avoid to give those drugs. Okay, so by this hazard confidence interval, you can easily predict that which drug is effective in which type of population, which subset of the population, like this only. Okay, this is the overview of the hazard ratio and the confidence interval. Now I am going to conclude these things, but before that I am give you some example of the abnormal, not you can say abnormal, but you can say different type of survival curve and how to predict the analysis from the survival curve. This is the LUX-LUNG 7 study between the afatinib and ziftomenib. That is, the afatinib is the study population, study group, and ziftomenib is the control group. You can see the hazard ratio is the 0.73, very good. In the p-value is 0.071, very good, significant. Confidence interval is 0.57 to 0.95. That is also accepted in the afatinib. But when you can see the survival curve, or when you can see the median survival here in the ziftomenib group is 10.5 months and afatinib is 11 months. So the question might arise to you that the median survival is 10.5 months in ziftomenib, 11 months is afatinib, but how the significant thing has been coming? This is the median survival I am depicting. Okay, this is because in this curve initially there is no difference, but after few months, after 12 months, you can say 12 or 13 months, the curve started separating. Okay, so the benefit comes after the 11 months. So only seeing the median survival you cannot predict. Ultimately you have to see this thing hazard ratio, you have to see the graph from the beginning to the end. So before seeing the median survival, or before just only seeing the median overall survival or median progression-free survival, you have to see the hazard ratio and also the survival curve, how it's separated. Another thing is, sometime in few studies it is written that the median survival not reached. What that means? You can see here in this curve, this is N1 nodal status and N2 nodal status. In both cases, the median survival, that is the 50% of the survival not reached. That means the treatment is so effective that even after the end of the study, more than 50% population remain alive. So it is very much effective. You can see in the second example that here the 50% survival is there, reached in the N2 population, that is a N2 population, but not reached in the N1 population. That means that the treatment is so effective, or the prognosis is so good, that this survival is very good and do not reach the median survival. But in the other arm, the median survival has been reached. So those are the median survival not reached is better obviously than that of those who reach the median survival, or survival is given. Okay, this is another example of a survival curve where this is a Bolero-2 trial where the two arm have been, the everolimus have been is a drugs of question, and it is taken into account between the two study group. So here you can see there is the crossover between the two study arm at the end of the study, and ultimately you can see that the log-rank p-test is insignificant. It is hazard ratio 0.89, but the confidence interval is 1.10. That is, there might be some hazard of giving the treatment regarding the overall survival. So these are the few examples of the survival. There are the various other examples out there. So before going to conclusion of any kind of analysis of the survival analysis, you have to see everything: median survival or median overall survival, progression-free survival, whatever. You have to see the p-value, you have to see the hazard ratio value, you have to see the confidence interval values. Okay, by this way only you can easily get a conclusion or draw a conclusion from all these things. So in my conclusion now, it is that the survival analysis is a widely used statistical method in the oncological studies. It depends on the number of the events and the censoring. It is unique as the time is taken into consideration. Only p-value doesn't mean anything here. You have to see the hazard ratio and also the confidence interval. Thank you, everyone. I want to ask or request Dr. Jiva Bhattacharya to go for the next presentation. Dr. Bhattacharya.
Yes, thank you, Kaustav. That was an excellent presentation, actually. So I will continue from where you left, and we'll show the practical analysis in SPSS. So before going to the actual survival analysis, now I'll show you how to enter your data in SPSS. Okay, so by now we know how to take out those the dates. Basically, from date, how can we extract the values of date, time, or months, so that we can use the numerical data for our analysis purpose. Now let's I have created one blank SPSS sheet for that, just for the sake of data entry. So as we all know, we go to the variable view first. So quickly I will show. We'll create the patient ID. As you know, everybody knows that. I don't need to repeat it. Now next is that I will enter a part which is known as time. The next variable will be time. This time is whatever we have calculated from our Excel sheet, suppose in month or day. So time of event. Okay. Next is, now what I need to mention is, so what will be the status at the time? So what is the status of the patient at this given time? This is the time. So if you want to calculate recurrence-free survival, overall survival, PFS every time, so you have to mention time for each. So you have to create separate time frames for each time variables for each. So if I say it is, I am going to see overall survival, I need to mention is time to time date. So that means time to date. And again, if I need to see time to recurrence, so you need to mention time to recurrence. Because as I have already mentioned, for each event, you have to define separate time and status. Time, status. These are the two things you need to do for analysis. Now, what will be the measure? I have already mentioned this is a scale variable. Now, after time, what I have to need to see what is the status. That means I have to define the event status. Now, suppose as Dr. Kaustav has mentioned that the event could be either death or something else. Something else means the patient may have lost to follow-up, you may have stopped follow-up, that is administrative censoring, or the patient is alive. Whatever it is, you make all these categories as censored. Okay, either as I have already told, the event should be mutually exclusive. So either there will be death or no death. Now I will not include any other thing apart from death in the calculation. I will either add an event, that is death, or I will add something called censored. That can be anything, which is already described by Dr. Kaustav. So I'll put some values. Value 0. As we know, you know how to put categorical values. So similarly, I'll put values, that is 0, and I will label it as censored. That means whenever you will put 0, the SPSS will detect it as censored, and 1 as event. I'm not putting date or anything, I'll just put an event. That means, okay. And lastly, when suppose you want to compare, I will show it as a same time. So suppose you want to compare, so you know you have some arms, right? So intervention, like radiotherapy or no radiotherapy. So again, that will be one category, right? Intervention arm. Yes, we have 0 for Arctic or 1 for no Arctic. So this is how we enter it. Now, as I have already mentioned, from our for your suppose you are looking after some for following up your thesis patients for recurrence, date, survival, everything. So you have to put for each patient you have to put separate pairs of time and status. Time and status. Okay. Please let me know if you have any confusion. Okay. Now coming to the data view. So you put patient ID 1. So I have already mentioned what will be the time of event. You can actually mention where I will look into month. So coming to the data view. So time, suppose I will be 6 months. Now let me see the status. I'll have the drop down menu now. So I'll see censored. That means the patient did not have the event. Okay. And intervention arm, you can mention this patient is RT. And again, you can put an 2, you can put 8, you can put there's an event, and there was no RT. So like this, you have to enter as per the patient. So this is how you enter data for survival analysis. Now I'll come to one data sheet which is already with me. Here. Give me 1 second to open the file. I hope you can see it. So in this example, they basically have 150 patients. Okay, you can see the ID, and we have 150 patients. So 150 on 150 patients, these patients had was exposed to 3 types of program for decreasing smoking. Okay, so 50 patients received a program where they were encouraged to smoke e-cigarette. Some 50 patients received nicotine patch, and some patient had hypnotherapy program. So all of them, the aim was to see the effect of smoking practice. Okay, so here the event was that how many of them has started smoking back. So everybody stopped smoking after the program. The event was how many of them again start smoking back. So that is basically the failure of the program, right? So similar, you can justify it similarly. Suppose you have 3 different drugs comparison, and you want to see the effect of drug on mortality or recurrence. So there the event will be there. So here it is the failure. Usually the events are defined as a failures. Usually the good events are not defined in survival analysis. Usually they are usually the bad event. So the failure. So failure here is when the patients again starts back smoking, and they analyzed it the time in the in terms of days. Okay, not months or years. It is in terms of days. So what I need to see, I need to see the survival analysis curve, and as Dr. Kaustav has mentioned, it is most the Kaplan-Meier curve, as it is most commonly used for survival analysis. So it is called survival curve, but it is not always a survival. Okay, so I will show you how to compare these 3 groups and how to see how to report it in your thesis. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to go to analyze. You need to go to survival. Okay, you'll go to we have defined our time as survival time, right? So you click it here in the left click, select it, send it to time. Okay, then you have event status. You see it status, so event status, very easy. Right? Now, how we defined event? We defined event as 1, right? We defined 0 as censoring, and we defined event as 1. So continue to 1. Now, if you have factors, that means you want to compare, then you can actually use the factor. And if you don't want to have any comparison, you just want to see the overall survival. Suppose you want to see the survival of the entire sample, okay, then you don't have to mention the factor. Naturally, the comparison factor will not come, so it will remain frozen. But if you want to see and compare, you can just click on the factors. Okay, I hope I'm clear till now. Then you go to compare factors. As Dr. Koshav mentioned, log rank test is the most commonly used test. However, log rank test has some limitations. So I'll not go into details of that, but just will touch upon that. So for testing, you can click log rank, press low, where, and over here at the same time you keep it same, pulled over straight up. Okay, keep continue. Options, what you need to see? I need to see survival table. I need to see mean and median survival. I need to see survival plots. Okay, I'm not putting this because that will be difficult for you now. So I'm moving to survival tables, mean. Okay, so the only thing you need to click it this by the survival plot. Others are already by default selected. Okay, so continue. Next, we'll go to the analysis. Okay, so if you see, this is called the frequency table. You don't need to see it. See here, the type of intervention, you can see the number of patients censored. That means how many numbers. Suppose if you want the opposite, these are the number of events happen in the groups. Okay, and this is the number of censoring. Okay, from there the percentage you can have, how many patients were how many patients survive, or something like that, if you want to have the percentages. Now let's see, before going into any looking at the testing or other things, let's see how is the mean and median, how is the description of our statistics. So mean is actually not a estimate for survival. The reason is the mean is simply calculated by the area under the curve in the survival curves, and that is not the representative of the actual average of the survival, because the time you need to consider. That's why you'll never see the mean to be a representative of survival. What we see always is median, as Dr. Kostav has also mentioned. So we see usually median. So what is the median? See the estimate, it is the median. You can see the median tab. Ignore the mean tab, it comes out with default. So you see the median tab, it is the estimate. So hypnotherapy program has given a median of 69 days. That means it could prevent smoking for 69 days. Median, the median time for prevention of smoking is 69 days, while for nicotine patch and e-cigarette is 9 days. Okay, if you want to see the 95% confidence interval, that is nothing but this median plus 2 into the standard error, that is the lower bound, and upper bound, that is the 95% confidence interval. Ignore this part now. I'll go to the survival fraction part first. Okay, so this is your survival and survival curve. So let's see the survival curve first. As Dr. Kostav has already mentioned, so you can see we had 3 arms. One arm has got this nicotine e-cigarette, one is the nicotine patch, and one is the hypnotherapy program. So you can clearly see the hypnotherapy program is much above the these 2 other arms. And as you know, the survival, this is the estimate of survival function. So upper the upper the curve is situated, the better the outcome, likely outcome. Okay, So you can clearly see, if you want to see the visually, you can see the hypnotherapy program has got better survival, or I should say better effect than the other two arms. Now also the nicotine patch arm is above the e-cigarette arm, but you don't know whether this is above it, but you really don't know how much is whether the difference is significant or not. In fact, you don't even know whether this difference is significant or not. That's why you have run the log rank test, right? Now, how do you see the survival? As Dr. Kostava already mentioned, from this graph, what you can do is you can go to this one, data level mode. Okay. You can see if you click, it will show you the amount of survival fractions. And also, if you off it, you can see here reference line in the axis. Suppose you can see the position to 0.5. Those. That means this is the 0.5. That means this is the median survival. And if you want, though we already have the medians over here, I just want to you to corroborate it from the graph. So now I will see the data level. So this is the amount of survival you can see over here, below and above. So this will be close to 5 for all. Now if you draw a line over here, it will come at around nearly 10. You can see it comes around nearly 10, and we have 9 over here. On the other hand, if you draw a line over here, it will come around 70, right? This is 69. So this is how you can, by graphically, you can see the estimate of survival, median survival. Now the last part. So whether this difference is significant or not. Okay. So now you have compared the 3 groups. As we told during ANOVA, when you were doing an ANOVA test for a 3-arm study, you cannot actually say where the difference lies. That means whether there is a difference between A and B, or the difference between A and C, or the difference between B and C. Similarly, for log rank or whatever test you run at the first time, you cannot say from this curve, even if it is significant, it will give a p-value or significance value. But you will not be able to interpret it as which one is superior to other, or where the difference lies. Okay. So now you look at the overall comparison level. So basically, log rank is nothing but it is a chi-square test, but it's quite a big test, robust test or omnibus test. So log rank mental Cox is the most commonly used test, as we have already told. Usually it says that log rank becomes more precise or a better representative when the carbs are separated in the later part. Okay, that means when there is more difference in the later part, usually log rank is a better test. And similarly, the Breslow is better when the carbs are separated earlier. Okay, and usually there is an assumption also that they should not cross. Okay, as Dr. Kosa was also mentioning. So there is an assumption that if they cross, the calculation becomes a bit complex. However, for our purpose, we'll be using the log rank test, which is the most commonly used test. Now look at the significance value of the log rank test. So it is again 0.000. So if you come and consider, so it is, as I have already told you, so if you right click, if you left click and then again click, you can actually see the actual p value. So 0.00 means it's not 0.000. So there is something beyond it. You can see it is 0.0002. So for the documentation purpose, you can keep it below 0.001 or 0.005, whatever your significance level is. Now, so if the log rank test is showing a 0.000, that means significant difference exists between these 3 types of intervention, and that is, and how much is the difference? We can see from the median estimate. Now, I cannot tell whether from this, whether the difference is between these two or between these two. So for that, you have to go for a log-rank test again, but comparing pairwise. Okay. So for that, what I have to do is, I'll go to analyze again. And there. Now, this. Let's see whether it comes out with an analysis or not. Do I have a pairwise comparison over here? 0.00. I don't have a pairwise comparison over here. Give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second.
Chandan sir, this is Abhishek. With your permission, can I just make one request for Jibok and Kaustav?
Oh, yes, definitely, Abhishek.
So, Jibok and Kaustav, I'm just requesting you one thing. While you are explaining this, I think it is prudent also to talk about the survival curves for many patients who are on immunotherapy. And while this is not statistically such an important issue, I think it is just prudent to discuss because they would have a very long tail of the Kaplan-Meier survival curve because of a disproportionately large proportion of patients who are surviving for a very long time. So how to interpret or how to look at this is very different from that of standard systemic therapy or radiation that we see. So just a comment regarding that, or if you have any curve, it would be great. If not, just to make a comment regarding this.
Kaustav, do you have one?
No, I have. If you want to discuss it for the interpretation, proceed.
Okay, let
Absolutely.
me finish.
We could just discuss this verbally. If you agree in the next schedule which I have, I could try putting up one.
Okay, that will be great. Okay, Kaustav. Hello, Kaustav. I'll just complete the pairwise comparison and then I'll hand over to you. Okay.
Okay, just there is one question, I will answer it. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So again, we'll go to analyze. We'll go to Kaplan-Meier. Everything is same, compare factor, you just keep it pairwise over straight up. Okay, continue. Okay. Okay, so here we have something different. Okay, you can see we have already seen the median. Now you can see that this is like a post hoc test in ANOVA. So they have mentioned again did a log rank test only, and this is the, you can see this is log rank mental Cox, and you can see the pairwise distribution of this is the significance level. Now you can see the comparison. So hypnotherapy, and you see all the three levels are over here. So hypnotherapy versus nicotine patch, if you see. Okay, hypnotherapy versus nicotine patch. Hypnotherapy and nicotine patch, the significance level is 0.001. Hypnotherapy versus e-cigarette, 0.000. That means they're significant. But if you compare e-cigarette versus nicotine patch, you can see the value is 0.214. That means it is not significant. So that means if we have this curve of the three curves, this curve, these two curves, though it is above it, it is not actually significant. That is one thing. Second thing is that while doing pairwise comparison, because you are doing multiple comparisons, you actually have to have some corrections over it. So you cannot take your previously defined 0.05 as the estimated for your p-value for this time. So usually what we do, as we have 3 arms, we do a one ferroting correction for it. That is dividing the 0.05 by 5, which comes out around 0.016. So if it is below that, we will consider it as a significance value. And consider this is 0.001, so it will be significant. So this is all about survival curve analysis. I think this is all I could do for today. If you have any doubt or any confusion regarding survival analysis, please write in the chat box. We'll try to answer it. Okay, Kostav, over to you.
Yeah, regarding the Vijay, your question, I have no such curve at present now. So in the next step, initial 15 minutes, I will depict I will just show the curve and will explain it. Okay. And regarding there is one question is that by Dr. Abhay Chakraborty, could you please repeat the aspect of the regarding the confidence interval helps to determine whether the hazard is superiority. Okay, fine. So I have to share my screen now.
I've stopped sharing.
Yeah. So what is hazard ratio? Hazard ratio is the hazard of an event in one group and hazard. Suppose in the treatment group, the hazard is less, okay, than that of the control group. So ultimately what happened, the hazard ratio became 0.78. It will become less than 1, rather less than 1. Okay, that means that treatment which have been given in the treatment group is beneficial. Okay, now what is in the 95% of the confidence interval, it is if it is 0.65 to 0.89, what does it mean? It means that in the population, as here it is a study population, okay, and in the confidence interval when we are using the standard error, it is we are reciprocating into the population. So in the population, the hazard ratio will vary from 0.65 to 0.89. 0.65, what does it mean? 0.65 means that 45% benefit if we add the treatment in the group, in the disease, okay, or it might be as low as 11%. Why 11%? The hazard is 0.89, so 1 minus 0.89 is 0.11, that is 11%. So it might be as low as 11% benefit of the treatment group compared to the this control group. So in the population, the effectivity or the survival varied of the rather the hazard varied from the 45% to 11%. Okay, so but there is ultimately ultimately my treatment group has a beneficial effect. Whatever might be, treatment group has a beneficial effect. But if this confidence interval is 1.11, that means that the numerator is more than the denominator. So if the numerator is more than denominator, then only the value became more than 1. So if we add the treatment in the disease, there might be some hazard. I mean, there might be some problem in some part of the population. What part of the population? That is 1.11, but that is near about in the 10% of the population, there might be some hazard. Okay, 1.1 minus 1, that is the 0.1. So in 10% population, there might be some hazard. Okay, so if this confidence interval is less than 1, it varies, whatever might be the case, the potential of adding the treatment. But if this value is more than 1, then there are the few population where adding treatment might not be beneficial. Okay, is that okay? If Dr. Abhay is there, is that okay? Yeah, I don't think he is there. Okay, fine. There is no other question. Okay, fine. Thank you. Over to you, Abhishek. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, I think Abhishekda is not there. Abhishekda, are you there?
Then we can wrap up.
I think we can request the chairpersons to, if they have any comments or anything to add, and then we can wrap up.
Okay,
Sir?
I do not know whether Subroto is there or not.
He's there,
From
sir.
me, he's there. Subroto is there. Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
but
now,
we cannot hear him actually.
okay. So let me thank you, Kaustav and Jivak. Thank
Thank
you
you, sir.
for all your efforts and finally delivering a very informative presentation on survival analysis and Kaplan-Meier curve. And I'm sure that all of us, including our students, they have learned many things from this class. And let me thank ARY West Bengal chapter as well for everything they are doing for our students. And with this, I conclude this part of program. And now, Jivak, you please take over.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thanks to all who have joined today, and we'll be coming back next week, right, Kaustav?
Yeah, next week.
With the 6th class. Thank you. Good night to all.